Okay, this is what I wanted to talk about because when I was young, the idea of wearing a backwards hat was a no-go. Look at you now.
I know it. And
Look at you
I
now.
thought about that. That's the exact same thing, and let me tell you why. And he's still around, Neil Bortz.
Okay.
You know, when I first started listening to talk radio was when I went to work for Moreland Altabelli.
Yeah.
1990.
A big influence in your life.
A big influence, talk radio. He was on WGST at the time.
Yeah, of course.
But he was talking about all those rappers wearing their hats backwards. And he said, I see them and I just want to take their head and snap it 180 degrees. He said,
Like a rag doll. Like
he said, they ought to start putting logos on the back of the hat. So here we are.
And look at that. You say with Atlanta, got to rep Atlanta.
It's crazy.
You know, I never wore my hat backwards, I think, because I was scared of you. Okay, here we are. We're potting it up for the first time.
Pot, what do we call this?
I was calling it Dad's World.
All right, Dad's World.
Dad's World. Here we go. Okay, start at the beginning. Tell me about the house you grew up in. Your most formative memories.
We're going back that far, huh?
Just for the first segment, tell me about the home you grew up in. It doesn't have to be the actual structure, because I know you're probably going to go down to like the brick and mortar and what the crawl space looked like.
If you like, I could illustrate it for you.
I don't think any viewers would be any viewers above the age of 65.
Yeah, would be interested.
They would be interested in that.
Skills.
Take me there. What was it like? Where were you? You know, what was the vibe like at your most formative memories?
First memories are holes in the floor that you had to walk around. And almost like the clamp as a critter, a possum, something could crawl up in the middle of the freaking night. Winters were very brutal.
No insulation.
Oh, absolutely.
Tongue and groove walls.
That I don't remember. I just remember the holes in the floor. I remember the bathroom was, 3 by 5 or something.
Yeah, one bathroom.
Yeah, one bathroom. And then right outside the bathroom was a potbelly stove that kept us warm with coal. You jump out of the damn tub because you'd be freezing because you're in the tub, the wind's blowing through the wall, making you cold, and then you get out of the tub and you run right outside the door to where the you try to do this and get dry it off and stuff, and then you sand your ass on the
so you liked it though. You liked it in the sense of you didn't know any better, right? You
didn't know any better, man. My best friends I played with were grasshoppers and locusts. I'm serious. Tied down a piece of thread to their leg and let them fly off. And I'm not exaggerating. Even for a little kid, they were probably that big.
Yeah.
Black with remember when they had their wings folded in, they had a red stripe. Is that a locust?
I don't know. I grew up in the 1990s suburbs, so I was not playing with locusts and grasshoppers at that time.
I don't know if they taught you that stuff in school. Yeah.
So then you are there for a little while, and what took you out of that area?
That was when my grandmother's house burned down. I'm sure I probably have told you this story. I'll reiterate.
Our viewers haven't seen, so look right into these cameras and yes, let's talk about it.
December the 29th, 1962. Middle of the night, about 2:00 in the morning. I wake up I hear screaming, and because I hear my dad is what it is, and he's running into the kitchen, and right outside the kitchen was a door, and it was with that typical first step is 6 feet because there was no porch or anything.
Yeah.
But right outside the door was where they would bring the gas tanks or the gas stove. And they're trying to get all these quilts, or what do you call those? Just moving pads, because that was our blankets, that was our comforters and everything.
Oh, yeah. So, they're very versatile.
Trying to get them all wet and put them on the tanks because they were afraid it's so hot the tanks were going to explode. The garbage from this, living in the kitchen and stuff.
Yeah.
Garbage can was sitting a little too close to the furnace. Wow. And she had this old dog, they called him Wolf. And he was a freaking wolf, man, a big old black German Shepherd.
Big boy.
Yeah, I mean, he drugged me through the neighborhood one time trying to kill a little chihuahua, and I couldn't do nothing with him. He was,
like the locust, he was...
he was the big black locust.
He was the big black locust. Wolf.
Who didn't like chihuahuas.
Yeah, apparently. Okay.
Yeah, so anyway, he went in there and got her out. It was amazing. And I was afraid to death she was dead because I didn't see her and everything. I just see her house grow, in flames.
And then I'm sure you're hearing all
I'm
kinds
7
of
years
family
old.
members.
Oh, yeah. And probably Casey was the one that got me all calmed down and told me she was okay. And then she was around the corner and where my mom and dad slept on the other side. That was the 29th. We went back to school probably on the 2nd or 3rd of January. And that thing was still smoldering. I remember riding the school bus and everybody's like, wow, look at that, Everything was burned away. Everything was gone. Char was coming up and the smoke was still rising. But that damn furnace was still sitting up there on the beam. Just kind of teetered up there. To me, it seared in my head. I will never forget it. I mean, I will just, because I'm thinking to myself, that's the thing that started it all. Yeah. And it's the last man standing. It's just very, very strange.
Yeah, that is strange. It's almost like I don't know if you do this. I have a big, it's not a problem. It's just a big character trait of mine of like object characterization.
Mm-hmm.
You look at an object, and you just think of the story of that object, like if it had a personality or if it, so I know that for a lot of people that leads to things like hoarding and being a pack rat because you never want to get rid of stuff. But the furnace, just sitting there, just the fire raging around it and it just doesn't budge,
Yeah, it's just crazy. And it was just teetered on the beam. It's not like it still had a bunch of floor and stuff. Well, it sort of had floor under it a little bit, but the beam was just sticking out like a big old burnt pencil or something with that thing on the top of it.
Wow.
I was pretty good kid when I grew up in the country, so to speak. I fell in line step and barrel with everybody else on what kind of mischief we would get in. And, country boys like to fight. I don't know if you knew that or not. And I think they probably still do. In
suburb
a lot of ways.
Boys don't.
Yeah, they don't. They don't. They like to play video games. That's a whole.
Oh yeah, we like to fight.
That's a whole different
Like to
conversation.
fight
Y'all
on the
like
digital
to fight
front.
with your thumbs.
What was the mischief that you would get into? Like, what was your big when you were a kid?
Little bitty
Let's
kid.
go do a bat. Let's go fill in the blank. What were you doing?
All right, first mischievous thing that I got into, and it was probably my premiere of really good acting. So we found this old hose, and I got this bright idea. I said, let's stretch this hose across a bridge, and we'll stop everybody when they come up and tell them to drive real slow because they're pumping something out of the creek. So everybody had to put on their little acting hat. And most of them would just ease right over.
Okay.
And all of us, being nice. And then, of course, they'd drive on up the road and we'd laugh our asses off.
Oh, you got them so good.
And then the next car would come up.
Those jackasses didn't know what they were doing.
So this lady comes up and I go out and tell her, and she said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "Well, they're pumping something out of the creek."
And how old are you? Why would the county have hired little kids?
Wasn't a hiring thing.
They told us to go up.
We were being good Samaritans.
Oh, wow.
And then she started to ask me, well, why are they pumping out of the creek? I said, I'm kerosene. I don't know. So anyway, she pulls on across the bridge real slow, and she gets probably 20, 30 feet on the other side of the bridge. And she stops her car, and she sticks her head out the window. She said, "Come here, little boy." I came in, she said, "I'm going to go home and call Earl Lee and ask him what's going on."
To which you responded,
"Yes, ma'am." She drove away. And I said, "Listen, what would I have said in the day? Something like, let's get the fuck out of here." I said, "She's going to call the sheriff." And anybody knows anything about Earl Lee, growing up in the country, everybody knew he ran Douglas County with an iron fist all the way up until the 90s. He was the freaking man. And you didn't step out of line in Douglas County. So, you know, you grow up in a little place like that, outside the city of Atlanta, you become somewhat innocent. You know, you watch the Beatles come on TV, man going to the moon, all that stuff. War in Vietnam, it starts raging really hot in the mid-'60s, and, you know, I'm getting older and I'm becoming aware of all that. And then all of a sudden my dad goes broke like he did several times in his life and foreclosed on the house.
What prompted that? Just not having enough money to pay the bills, or shortcoming, or economic downturn?
No, it wasn't a downturn. It was really him and his inability to do whatever to
provide.
Yeah, I guess that's it in a nutshell.
So did you ever feel like throughout your childhood, like your family was making steps forward, or was it always, we are just doing enough to get by?
Just enough to get by, and when you made that step forward, it was always 2 steps back.
Always something happened. There was always a house that burned down.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
There was always fire in the attic.
Yeah. Always a furnace to burn.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we didn't have luxuries at all, ever.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not poor-mouthing because nobody, I'll say nobody, a lot of people from those times lived that way.
Sure. But, you know, when you are a kid and you're in those developmental years and you can't even fathom what it might be like to have some of the things that your peers had at that time.
What set it off for me in my way of thinking how the world operated was we were still on Boat Rock Road. I started having first memories probably at 3 years old. And I wasn't in school yet, but they built a house somewhat across the street from us. Brand new house, you know, split level. It was the thing.
Ooh, yeah.
Dick Van Dyke sort of house.
Wow,
you know?
yeah.
Modern.
Yeah.
And the kid I guess it was being built, somebody had it built, and then the people that moved in, the kid was, I think, a year older than me. Got to go over and meet and play and stuff a couple of times, and then he came to my house, and his mama came over to the house, and I don't think I ever saw him again.
Oh, man.
Anyway, how'd we get off on that tangent?
I don't know. You just had a little bit of a breakthrough earlier this week. What happened with Maisie earlier this week?
That was nice.
Yeah. She has had stranger danger towards Papa J for majority of her life. But
well, I wasn't there the day she was born, so yeah.
You didn't take your shirt off and go skin to skin with her in the hospital. But she gave you a big old hug.
Big old hug and a kiss.
And a kiss on the lips. I remember kissing you on the lips when I was younger.
How does it feel?
You have a real good pucker. Yeah. It was like my lips could just fall right into you.
There you go.
It was fun. I remember when it was like, oh, I guess I can't do that anymore. But, you know, after you turn 30.
Yeah, it's just nobody cares.
What's it like being a granddad? How are you enjoying it?
I'm enjoying it a lot. I think I'm going to enjoy it a whole lot more now that I can get a little bit warmed up to some more, and I can say Papa J is taking us to the aquarium or stuff like that, or going to take us to the park. And
yeah, that's the stuff that I'm really looking forward to with you guys. You know, that we're lucky enough to have these opportunities to do these things where you guys can build that bond, that she'll understand that importance, you know.
And I can help, you know, shape, because I'm telling you, you're doing a great job. Your wife's doing a great job.
Thank you.
There ain't no manual for it, is there?
No, there's not. And it's just every day, you know.
And both of you guys are a whole lot more patient of people than your dad could ever be. I'm learning, but
yes,
I'm not learning with myself. I'm trying to learn with others.
Our generation, I think, needs to do a better job of giving your generation credit of doing the best you could with the cards you were dealt. Because, listen, I live in a world where I can do stuff like this for a living and get paid for it, and I get to do it all from my house. Like, if I have to drive into the city for any reason, I still get frustrated by that. And you're doing it 2 hours one way every day, for years on end. And it's on top of trying to commit to all types of things that you're doing within the extracurriculars of being a parent. I at least look at it like your generation is the one that's kind of helped us see the importance of being a dad.
The role of a father probably didn't change a whole lot between the turn of the century all the way up until the Second World War, I would think.
Exactly.
And then the dynamics really changed after that.
When you started thinking about the role of a father, when do you think that like entered your mind? For me, it was always there because my dad was always there. For you, I'm sure.
I don't think that it was, honestly.
Yeah, you never really had that until you maybe became one.
Yeah, because I didn't have anything to gauge it by. You mean the thought like, well, when I grew up and
Exactly.
I'm going to be a dad? No, I never really remember having those thoughts.
I remember having those thoughts when I was like 6 years old.
Really?
Yeah. Did you know what you wanted to be when you were a kid?
By the time I was probably 10 years old, I wanted to be an architect.
Really?
Yeah.
What took you there? Like, what was the thing that was like, oh, that's a thing?
Falling water.
Really?
It was published in Life magazine, I think. And I just thought that was the most amazing freaking thing I'd ever seen in my life.
So that's why you're drawn to that structure.
Linear architecture.
Yeah.
Melded with nature. Thought, yeah, I can do that.
I could draw lines.
Yeah, I can draw lines, even angles, but when you're dyslexic at trying to draw angles, it gets a little bit in your way. But
do you think that it was just that's how you saw the world? Like that's how you
in a linear way, structure, detail.
Yeah.
It's a curse, but it's a blessing too.
When you went down that path, did it ever fade for you, your desire to want to be that?
No, the desire didn't fade, but it's really a hard thing to keep focused and be academic,
Yeah.
You have to find the niche, and that's what I did. I found what really, really works for me.
What really resonated with you.
What really resonates with me is driving other people crazy when they do it wrong,
Love that. You're real good at that. You're a master at pointing out people's mistakes.
I can't. Yeah.
Nick, my older brother, his firstborn.
Shout out Nick.
Yeah, shout out to the Nick. I've decided I'm going to start calling him the Nick, like he's a wrestler. You like it?
I like it.
We were just discussing all day long. We were basically trying to solve problems on how to make this set look as good as it possibly could, how to get all these things wired together and all of that. But Nick is a tinkerer, and he is such a creative mind from a tinkering standpoint that it's fun to just bounce those types of ideas off of people. I've learned within myself that I don't like letting people down. Like it's a complex for me,
Yeah.
So if I jump into projects with people, it holds me accountable to say I don't want to let them down, right? So like with people like Nick or something like that, you come over and it's like, let's just bounce this around. Let's figure this out. I've actually heard that in the architecture world, it's very cutthroat. It's not like a breeding ground for collaboration. It's very competitive. Is that why you didn't go as far into it as you did?
Architects who become real architects, who stick with the plan and stick with the whole program all the way through, tend to be straight line, pompous artists.
But this is their canvas.
This is their canvas, and it's my creation.
Yeah.
My bow tie's on straight. And that's what I didn't like about the people like that, and they're very cutthroat.
Yeah.
They'll steal your idea in a minute.
I think that's one thing I've enjoyed about being a creator in the South, not going out to LA, is that the sense of collaboration here exists
a whole lot better than it does out there in the cutthroat world.
I will say that work ethic is different in the South compared to LA. Just people not taking it as seriously as I would love to. Like, I would love to build a team of people that took it super seriously. And that's not hard to find now because, you know, those people have weeded out over time. But I remember when we were getting started, when I say we, I mean we, because Dad over here used to produce all of our short films for us when we were younger. So,
and would produce more if anybody would want to make a short film.
That's right. That's actually why we are doing this podcast.
Kickstarter, but it's not through Kickstarter. It's through
Nickstarter.
Nickstarter. That's it. It's the Nickstarter.
It's the Nickstarter.com/biz. I do love that part of the story. How we did not do this. Like, we were not like a performer family, you know, like you didn't have like a traveling actor. You weren't a stage dad. You do a great job of this. I actually want to ask you about this because it does lead into Max was a child actor. Okay. Our little brother was a child actor.
He's not my brother. He was my third son.
That's right.
Call me Fred McMurray.
That's right. Okay. So Max was a child actor. He was damn good at it. He was really good. He was such a cute kid. He was in a film called Warm Springs opposite Kenneth Branagh. Kenneth Branagh. Is it Branagh? I don't know.
Whatever. He'll tell us. Ken, you watching?
Shout out to Kenneth Branagh. You're watching. You have so many of these Forrest Gump type stories in your life. I want to make sure they get documented, so we don't have to do all of them now, but you have so many. Do you pride yourself on seeking those out?
I do like to seek things out, and I'm not afraid to, just to get into the moment. But because of things I've done, and I got to look at this, you share info with people. Oh, this and this and this and this and this. And then it becomes sounding narcissistic or something.
Yeah.
You know, and not that you're just an old man that's experienced a lot of shit.
Yeah, yeah. I kind of just like them for like party stories, you know? It's not guiding your life. That one time you met that one person, it changed your life. It shouldn't honestly change your day. You know? And I think that's like the approach that you've taught us to take, just to have these experiences with whether it be a big name celebrity or someone of influence, down to just the crazy circumstances that you find yourself in, that can put you, you know, that can just lead to like an interesting story, just like Forrest Gump would have, you know? Being a granddad, and then knowing the type of relationship that we had with your dad. And when I say relationship, I mean there was not one. I met him maybe 3 times.
Do you remember the last time you met him?
I remember so distinctly going to a trailer.
That's it.
And it was very dimly lit. It was the first trailer I can remember being in. And I remember a very forced conversation. I don't remember the specifics of it, but I do remember being eager to not be there anymore. It was almost like I was scared, you know?
Yeah.
But I knew it was important.
Yeah, I guess it was the final curtain call. I think that's the last time I ever saw him.
Was it?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it was.
Was that?
I think that's probably why I took you guys, because I knew in my soul that's exactly what was going to happen.
Well, it probably had been a long time since you had seen him before that too, right?
It had been several years, yeah.
How would you describe the way that your dad was viewed or talked about in the house?
Pretty feared.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of like your dad.
Very different. Very, very different. We hung out on the arm of the recliner with you and watched Jeopardy. It's very different.
This is a real thing that probably still goes on today for long distance truck drivers. You have small kids. Well, doesn't happen today because you can't beat them anymore. But it's like, wait till your dad gets home. Well, wait till your dad gets home, and it's going to be another 3 freaking weeks.
Oh, man.
And you get reminded of it. don't forget, Dad's going to whip that ass when he gets home.
You would have to go on a pretty healthy streak of not getting in trouble for your dad not to whip your ass every time he got home.
That's a good analogy. I didn't think of it that way. But
was that the case? Were you typically?
Well, it just depends on too what mood Mama was in when Daddy got home. If she was feeling good, and if he was in a good mood. But he probably more times than not wasn't. Because think about it, he's coming off of them Black Beauties after being on the road for weeks at a time. He's ready to come home and fall down into bed and go to bed and shut the fuck up. I'm trying to sleep.
Got kids that are being loud, and I've heard people talk about this being off at war or whatever the case is, that when you're not there for those formative years, it's kind of hard. I would imagine it would be hard for all of a sudden this presence is in the house, and
now
but I'm used. I have my own way of doing things, and this is. Whether that's from your mom's perspective or from your perspective, that it's hard to reintegrate, all the way around. I can imagine that's a hard life to live if you're, And
it's probably why a lot of people fail at it. PSTD, as they call it these days.
Yeah.
I don't know what they called it in the old days. I guess it's going crazy.
Yeah. How old were you when you moved out?
First time I moved out, I was 15. That was when things was really getting rough between me and my father, and my rebellion was coming through in the worst ways possible.
So you and your dad are having it out.
So we're having it out, and it's like, it's time for you to go sort of thing, or it's the best thing that could happen.
Time for you to go.
So I moved.
At 15.
Well, yeah.
I don't know what else I can do, kid.
So I moved out to Douglasville. Again, in the middle of the year, got my classes, all of that set up. My hair was probably as long as yours is.
Yeah.
Then that was when I was first learning how to make 2 chords on the guitar.
Yeah.
Thinking I was going to be a next rock star sort of thing.
Well, I mean, you looked a lot like Mick Jagger. I'm not going to lie. You had a good rock and roll look.
Well, everybody used to call me Jumpin J Flash or some shit.
Oh,
like
yeah?
That. Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Jumpin Julius, that's what it was.
Jumpin Julius. I like it. What do you miss about your youth?
Not hurting.
Yeah.
No, what do I miss about the wonderment of it? Learning something new, which I still try to learn something new. But, seeing something for the very first time, like a color television, you couldn't imagine what that was like.
There's just so much new shit now.
Yeah, it's a daily thing.
Like the wonderment, I think the wonderment is still there. It's just that the idea of having to wait for the new thing doesn't exist anymore, which I do think taps into part of the wonderment,
What makes me wonder is, how did we get so damn smart?
I was thinking about that a little while ago too, about how when I was a kid, and I would think about this because I would look at adults and think about how smart they were. I mean, we would watch Jeopardy, and I remember you would know things, you would know answers to the questions watching Jeopardy and being like, how does he know? Like, how does he know these things? Not necessarily that you were the smartest man in the world, but the idea that you knew any of it was so like that was like a wonderment for me, But I remember thinking, man, like when I'm his age, I'm going to be smart too. And I had no idea how much smarter I actually was going to be because of the internet. Those memories are very, very seared into my brain. The same way for you when you talk about like color television.
Yeah.
That first era of having the computer in your bedroom, I remember watching you play Under a Killing Moon and Mist and the pinball game that used to come on every Windows computer, I remember just being so enamored with that. I remember being
Dad won't let me play.
Dad! It's weird to think about you playing video games. It is weird to think about that, but I remember bonding with you a lot playing that game specifically, Under a Killing Moon.
It was a great game.
It was a great game. Max just played through it.
Did he?
Yeah, oh, he's playing through it. He keeps saying, I'm too dumb for this game. I was like, brother, I would never think to play through that game without looking through a walkthrough. Because, you could literally like walk through the whole game by like, they're these, go to a website and say, how do I solve this?
Yeah,
you do this, is this.
I didn't have that luxury.
But oh my gosh. It took forever to get through. You would get stuck on a puzzle for 2 weeks. Finally figure it out. Oh, yes. That euphoria of that puzzle.
It was the first interactive video game I can remember.
And then the cutscenes. Even now, I love the idea of games that use like real footage, like, real video footage in order to tell the story. And I think it's a nostalgia thing, I don't think that's very popular necessarily. But I remember playing that game with you and being really scared because I couldn't quite understand. I was like, you're talking, are they just waiting for you to respond to the question? I couldn't, It was just hard for me to wrap my mind around what I was seeing. I've been fortunate enough to be that generation, that's my Beatles. That's my everything. The advent of the internet.
What's concerning me about your child is coming up is how digital world is going to influence her. It's a bad thing for social media stuff for kids right now.
Yeah.
I guess you've heard there's a bunch of damn studies going on right now that says that it's just really messed a bunch of kids up.
Oh yeah.
And I can see it.
Yeah. It's a huge, huge topic of discussion in our house. I think people will look back at this first age of social media the same way that we looked back on like cigarettes and just like, what were we thinking? Why would we let a 13-year-old have this and just roam free with it? Suicide rates for teenagers is just, it's massive. It is
because of somebody on the other end of a damn keyboard just throwing some, binary numbers back at you. And the next thing is thinking how many people are going to get sucked into believing AI stuff is real.
I know.
Oh my God, she's beautiful.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's terrifying. It's terrifying because of the lack of guardrails that have existed really in my entire life. Guardrails do come up. Legislation gets written and, it goes on whatever path politicians think that it should go on. But it's always expanding in this way. Like you can have anything you want. You can see anything you want. You can be part of any community that you want.
And it's not regulated. Not that I want the government regulating everything we do. I'm a little concerned with what's going on right now. The way everything is just shifting so damn far over.
Yeah.
When you got people bitching about, baby, it's cold outside.
Yeah.
Because that's, misogynist and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But then the number one song's something about a wet-ass pussy. Does that make any sense? Does that make any sense in the real world?
I know. What's really hard for those that are not on extreme one way or the other, for the ones that do live in the middle, which is this sensible world, which I do think is a majority of us.
It's a majority of us, yeah.
But it's very hard to live in that world. It's just very hard to know what is right, what is wrong, what is truth, what is not. We are all, I think, in this collective age trying to write a new sense of normal that we will carry with us for the next generation. But as we become so much more globalized, I feel like we also become very homogenized, because we can just find our own community. We can just find these groups of people that just think the exact same things as us. So if we think,
it turns into alienation.
Yeah, and then it turns into almost like wars between factions.
But nobody can find common ground anymore.
Right.
I hate you because you don't like the person that I like.
Yeah. I think so much of that too is because people don't understand the importance of discourse, of not agreeing with someone, but saying it's not to agree, it's to hear your side and for you to hear my side of the argument. And hopefully
neither
when
one
we
of you
walk
got to see it.
away,
When you walk away, you can
you can
see.
say, okay, I could see that. I could see where they're coming from.
It's like, okay, well, they've got an opinion, and
right.
It doesn't make them a bad person.
Right. It makes them a person.
But nobody can seem to be civil like that anymore.
Yeah. Except for on this podcast. We're going to evolve the way that we ultimately should, you know? The way that we get there is just, it's in a really weird space right now. And I hate it for your generation because I don't understand it, and it's just a couple of generations behind me. I can't imagine what it must be like for the older generation to watch the news or walk outside and wonder what happened to the world they resided in.
There's no regard for life whatsoever.
No regard for the taking of life or the living of life. And so whether it's the mentality that you have or the influence of the people or the things around you, right? That like for a gun owner, a responsible gun owner, I could understand why a responsible gun owner is looking at what happens with people killing each other every day due to gun violence. And they're saying they're ruining it for everyone. But that gun owner, that responsible gun owner is probably looking towards different spheres of influence that have guided their mentality to, being a responsible gun owner. Whereas whether it's the home that you grow up in or the video games that you play or whatever the case is, it's led to the result of that is a disregard for human life. And so when all of that comes into play, it manifests itself into what you see playing out, That's just the way that I see it. And it's like, I don't know what the solution is to that. If we lived in a society that didn't glorify those things, well, then those video games wouldn't sell and those records wouldn't sell and that news wouldn't sell.
No.
So do we really want it to go away?
Well, no, I don't think we want it to go away because just the human condition has always had a thrill for bloodlust and sex. I guess the thing I really don't understand about mankind, it is a thing I do not understand for sure, is why man has to hate man so much. You know what I mean?
I do.
There's no need. The struggle doesn't have to be real all the time.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be that hard.
If we all just loved each other and... Well, why is that? Why do you think? Why are we conditioned that way?
Could honestly be just an animalistic thing, That like maybe our capacity for love is what makes us so unique. That like that's what's gotten us as far as we have.
Us and a few animals that we are aware of.
Yeah. That like understand what love is how we are able to evolve. And it happens. Sometimes it happens faster. Sometimes it happens slower. But for humans, our capacity for love has allowed us to look past what we are at our core, which is just fucking depraved animals that don't have a regard for those things because they just lack empathy, We're
nothing more than a biped raptor with no tail.
Yeah.
Velociraptor.
Honestly. The night is upon us. I have been moving for about 13 hours now. But I've enjoyed this.
It's been fun.
Yeah.
I haven't been talking about anything but rambling.
I know, but it's part of a series, You can come back and do it again. You're only 15 minutes up the road. Kick it back on and we'll talk part 2. How did you fuck up your kid's life?
Well, we're going to need more than 70 minutes for that one.
All right. We got to think of a good catchphrase that we're going to go out with. We're going to let Dad sit here for a second until he can think of something. We'll cut in between all of this. And then.
Right. So how about, I don't see you in the future, and I'll see you in the past.
That's not bad. That's not bad. That's not bad. That's not bad. All right. Well, I love you.
Love you too, buddy.
All right.